All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Big Sexy, how you doing?
I am exhausted, but doing well. Just keep it moving and shaking.
Yes, and once again, the conversation about the Netflix documentary, s- more developments in this story as it stands right now. The 9 hour documentary is not going to come out, will not be released. The Prince Estate and Netflix have come to some sort of agreement where they've agreed not to release this. And I wanted to have a conversation about what does this mean uh, in terms of us as fans. Read some responses we've seen from people involved, and try to look ahead a little bit. Um, First thing I wanted to do though is jump to a news story of this and read through this together, just to kind of bring everything up to speed so far. So let me share this here. All right, and this is from the Guardian.
Oh,
So Prince Estate blocks release of Netflix documentary by Oscar-winning director Ezra Edelman. I'll just jump right into it. The estate of the late funk superstar. I love how they, there's so many things people use to describe Prince throughout the years, and I'm not mad at funk superstar. But the estate of the late funk superstar Prince has successfully blocked the release of a 9 hour Netflix documentary about him, made by the Oscar winning creator of OJ Made in America. Netflix said in a statement to the Minnesota Star Tribune, the Prince estate and Netflix have come to a mutual agreement that will allow the estate to develop and produce a new documentary featuring exclusive content from Prince's archive. As a result, the Netflix documentary will not be released. The film, which was completed but untitled, I was curious what they would have called that, um, was made by Ezra Edelman, who won an Academy Award and Emmy for the 8 hour 2016 film OJ Made in America, which told the story of the life and criminal trial of OJ Simpson. Edelman, who spent 5 years making his Prince film, was originally granted unprecedented access to Prince's archives known as the Vault by the estate. Following an undisclosed multi-million dollar deal, he was told the estate, which was then being administered by a bank, would not exert editorial control over the film, as as recounted in a New York Times article in September of 2024. The film features a number of people close to Prince, including band members or former band members, managers, girlfriends, and one of his sisters. Uh, Back in 2022, after Prince's estate changed administration to some of his heirs, associates, and the company Primary Wave, the new owners moved to block Elderman from accessing the vault. The Netflix executive who commissioned the film left the company, and after seeing the film, the estate reportedly made a series of demands for cuts and reshoots. One thing that this does not mention that I wanted to throw in, for those of us who've been really following this film development for quite a long time, originally this movie was going to be made, directed by, now her name, uh, Eva. What's her name?
oh, oh
Eva
shit.
DuVernay, if I'm saying
Yes, Ava.
Ava, yes, sorry. Beautiful sister, very talented, award-winning as well. Great work. And I don't know if we've ever gotten a real clear answer of why she
Well, I would
stepped away from the project.
assume because she's not a documentarian, as far as I know.
That's if true, that'd be curious why she accepted the job to begin with, if she knew that going in, right? But
Yeah.
we haven't gotten an answer. But I just think that is so. I put that to say there's been stuff going on with this thing for quite a while, even before this situation. So what do we say? Sources speaking to Variety claimed the estate found the film to be sensationalized and had factual inaccuracies. Music producer Charles Spicer, a member of the estate, wrote on X in 2024, "We have a duty to honor and protect his legacy with a story that fairly shows his complexities as well as his greatness." And then he did a hashtag no 9 hour hit job. Dang. I mean, salute to my man Spicer. Like kept it real professional, and then he just had to throw that little petty kind of no hit job. I mean, damn. Okay, so it was a hit job. It is what it is. Um, but now the film's release has been canceled. The estate has taken a triumphant tone on social media, sharing the same statement as Netflix, as well as a new video caption. "The vault has been freed," showing footage of Prince alongside two quotes by him. "Despite everything, no one can dictate who you are to people." And this is the other quote, "The truth is, you're either here to enlighten or discourage." All right. Londale McMillan, a member of the estate and the lawyer who negotiated on its behalf, called the decision a big win for Prince's legacy. He said the estate's planned documentary would be excuse me, an in-depth piece that explores the complexities of the brilliant musical genius. Okay. The author of the New York Times article, Sasha Weiss, saw Elderman's film and called it a quote, cursed masterpiece. It's a
Hmm.
very interesting wording, saying it shows more movingly and convincingly that almost anything I've seen, how life can illuminate art and yet how separate the two really are. Mm, okay. Weiss, and if I'm saying, I hope I'm saying her name right.
Weiss.
Weiss, okay, Weiss, Weiss. Salute to you, Miss Weiss. Describes a scene that features Prince's former girlfriend, Jill Jones,
Uh-oh.
alleging alleging a physical assault by him against her. She also reports scenes that describe his dependence on pain medication and feature criticism of certain lyrics as anti-Semitic. Mm, okay, that's a heavy. That's a, you throw that tag on somebody. That's a
Yeah.
nothing to play around with. The musician and Oscar-winning filmmaker Questlove features in the film and told Weiss after seeing it, quote, "It was a heavy pill to swallow when someone that you put on a pedestal is normal. Everything's here. He's a genius. He's majestical. He's sexual. He's flawed. He's trash. He's divine. He's all those things. I saw this as a rare, rare chance for for black men to look human to the world." I just want to read that last part, and because I think wording is just important, and I feel like they're all being very particular with what they're saying. Aside from him, he's a genius. I find it interesting that somebody who's as big a fan as Questlove would actually use to say that he felt that he was trash at certain aspects, but I haven't seen the film. But he says he's all those things. He says, "I saw this as a rare chance for black men to look human to the world." That was the end of that article. Um,
Well, one thing about it is Quest film on Sly Stone comes out next week.
yes.
And maybe what he saw there will illuminate or impact what he did with his piece on Sly.
And it's interesting. I want to see that because also a big fan of Sly, and I know some of Sly's stories just from reading books and things. And I'm curious, does this documentary, which it looks like from the trailer, does it dive into like well, what would happen with Sly? Like, Sly, why did he stop, being this big thing? And, what happened with that? And I know from reading things, there's like drug use and different things going on. Uh, it makes you wonder, is that going to be addressed in the Sly documentary?
It
And,
has to be. It has to be.
well, see, that's one of the things, sort of arguments, but one of the things I hear back about the Prince thing is that we don't want to have our heroes seen with the mess. Can it just be about the music and the art and what they do? Um, and I would assume that same conversation would be the same for like somebody like Sly, right? So I'm very curious to see if that is shown. And you're saying you would have to show that.
Well,
Okay.
because with a lot of the things that Sly went into or was into, a lot of it's already out there, you know.
Okay.
And like for instance, the whole deal of him being 2 hours late to the show and all that's out there.
Yeah.
The fact that he dug out the floor of the record plant and put a waterbed in there when he actually moved in and was recording, that's out there.
Hmm.
Now, if there's something beyond that, and again, the salaciousness, and I'm going to just use an example, and I'm just going to make up a fake name, Bob Bob Smith. Suppose he's a big star and all that, and
Roger Bob Smith. Okay.
we've heard Bob may have had some pharmaceutical issues. Okay,
Mm,
fine. You can touch on that, but
mm,
you don't have to make it all about, well, let's get a shot of Bob, hunched over, packing his nose and just fiend out. Nobody wants to see that.
mm. Right. I got
You don't want to sensationalize that. You can address it,
you.
acknowledge that, there is an issue there and move on. You don't have to make it, like Chris Rock was in New Jack City. We don't have to get all that, and that's
No.
what, reading between the lines, that's kind of what I'm thinking happened with the Prince film. They pumped up the negative parts for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's and we've all read the New York Times piece, and then there's another video on YouTube of a couple of guys. At least one of the guys has seen the documentary, and he described from his point of view what it was. All of the people, the sort of reviews that I have read of the documentary so far, to me, they all sound like they all say that this is a masterpiece or this is a very intense viewing. As none of them walk away and say this was horrible, like, or I hate Prince or any. I've only heard that. Wow, you have to see this.
But the thing is, what we haven't heard though is from
Mhm.
people who've seen it. We haven't heard like a long dialogue. I expected Questlove, if anybody, would, and he's got his own platform, to say, "Look, we previewed this thing 9 hours worth. We're going to get
Right.
into it." No one's done that.
Well, I mean, well, he hasn't, but I'm saying there has other people who have seen it, who have put out videos, who have talked about what they saw on it. We just haven't heard a celebrity like him mention it, and I don't think he probably would ever speak on it because of the controversy. Well, aside from what he said to the New York Times, and he knows, talking to that reporter, this is about to go out wide. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no bigger publication than something like that, right? There was a cover story of that magazine. Um, so I mean, but then on the other side, if we think about this from the estate's perspective, uh, it makes total sense to me why you would not want that stuff to be in a product that you are putting out. That, this is their job to safeguard this. Their job is to make sure, what we do is to present Prince in the best light possible. We got a lot stake here. This is the whole point of this company, is to maintain this uh, thing called Prince, right? In all aspects, whether it's Paisley Park, it's the music, the reputation, the honor of what Prince is. It's their job to uphold that. And it probably would look wild uh, if this documentary comes out and there's stuff in here about somebody saying something like anti-Jew or whatever. Like, that ain't, you don't, we all know
Mm-mm.
that ain't nothing to play with. And also, oh, there's some you know, other stuff, allegations going on. Like I can imagine where that's like, man. And but see, and it's the funny thing is because it's the estate who agreed to make this movie. You know,
Well, hold on, hold on. Is
it
that
was
how it came down? Did
well, this
Netflix come to them, or did they
I
go to
don't know who
Netflix?
I don't know who came to who, but we all know both sides signed a piece of paper,
Yeah.
and the end result is we agree that this should be made, right? So my thing is to say they go into this together. Now, I understand that that was different management. You know, there's under new management now. There's other people that are in charge of the estate, so I get that. But it's just interesting. I'm very curious what they originally thought was going to be the outcome of this documentary. Um, or maybe they hired Mr. Elderman and didn't really know, like, yo, this cat, he's gonna go in. You know, he may be a little too thorough. You know what I mean? I wonder if there was a little once they and I'm curious. I don't. It sounds like the original, uh, the bank, Comera Bank, who was administering the estate at that time. I wonder, did they ever see any footage of this, or was it the first time it was presented to the estate? Was one it is under new management, and there's sort of a new viewpoint here. Like, nah, homie, uh, these parts got to be cut out. Like, ain't no way. Because I can understand, you know, if this is where I'm here to get my money, and you want me to put out something that's gonna could potentially mess up the bag, ain't no way. Not coming out from with my name, not under my watch. So I can understand the estate's point of view, um, of why you wouldn't want that to come out, and I can also understand from an artistic director's point of view, where he might be like, yo, this is my art. This is what I've made this. How much can I cut away with it where it becomes not what I intended it to be? So I can see how you got two different viewpoints going on here. And there's the one viewpoint where this is a business, this is a business. There's the other viewpoint where this is the artist, right? Uh, and 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 it's ironic that the subject of this is a guy who, uh, you could say, traditionally fought for artist rights, right? Like he was a stickler for you to do what this is what I'm presenting. I don't want to edit it down or da da da. So, it's interesting. Here's the thing, but here's what I wanted to ask a question to you, what you thought, and to the viewers. I think that well, I'll say this. So we can argue about what you shouldn't have in it, versus what you should. And I think both sides make excellent points of their arguments. I will come out and say personally, I wanted to see this. Like I really wanted, as a longtime Prince fan, for whatever that means and it's worth. I wanted to watch this for myself, just to see what this was. I would love to understand Prince. I've never met Prince. I know his music. I've studied the music. I've jammed to the music, meditated, whatever has influenced me in many different ways. Hence, we are doing this podcast. I've had a quest to learn more about him by doing interviews, which we have done, and listening to interviews that other people have done about Prince, and getting a little bit of understanding of how he was working and how did they create this and that. It's fascinating because we never had that information, right? And it just goes more into giving me hopefully a little insight to all this music I've been listening to for the last 30 some odd years or whatever. Like, oh, that. And then I've read the books, right? Some better than others, but I've read, suck them in. Uh, and I think for me, it's just a little more insight to, man, what drove a person to create like that, to live like that. I uh, can't not help, like, he's not alive right now. and he didn't die because it was natural causes, right? That's a problem to me. Like that's still like, if it was all so good, what the hell happened? You know what I'm saying? There's obviously something going on. And I'm not laughing because it's funny, it's just frustration. But my thinking is, now that this isn't coming out, and hopefully we get a new one. I'm glad that they're saying, "Hey, we're going to do a new documentary." Um, I can only assume they weren't very clear here, and I don't know the details of the deal, but I assume this new documentary is still coming out on Netflix.
I
It'll
would
just
think they
be,
would have a first position on that. Yeah.
yeah. It was like, if they said it's a multi-million-dollar deal, they're not just throwing the millions of dollars away in
No.
5 years worth of work.
No.
That ain't business. There has to be some sort of compromise somewhere. So I assume it is still going to be a Netflix thing. Um, but the question will be, well, what did they leave out? This is what I think is going to be the bigger story, that's even bigger than this documentary. Now it's gonna be about, well, what
What
was the
aren't we
real,
seeing?
yeah, what are they hiding? This is what I think is gonna happen. And I think, um, once that documentary does come out, hopefully it does. And I don't know if it's gonna take them a few years now. They'll start from scratch. So we're talking what, 227, 28. And again, I don't,
27 at a minimum.
yeah, I don't know how long it takes to do something like this, but it's gonna take a minute to come out. But in between that time, I think what you will probably is going to see are other journalists, possibly other filmmakers, fans or whatever, YouTubers, whatever. There's going to be people now like, yo, let's dig into what, why don't they want you to see certain, what do they not want you to see? You know, it said things are being sensationalized and factual inaccuracies or something, but it didn't say they was lying. So now it's like, well, then what is it
Mm,
that they don't want to show you? And I think what's gonna unfortunately gonna happen is that is going to be bigger than the things that I want people to really be enjoying and learning about Prince. And I think the exploitive nature, the clickbaity world, the breaking story, the scoopery of things is going to make those stories top of, I mean, once this new documentary comes out, those other stories are going to be ready to drop just before it or right after it, because then they're going to, well, this is what they showed. And remember that documentary that was something that's 9 hours and this is a 2 hour one? Here's the other stuff that, and we went and got the people who said those other stories. Now they can speak their mind. You know what I mean? This is what I think is going to happen. And that's going to be the bigger sort of thing. And I hate that. I don't want it to be a situation where people were going to feel like the princess stayed, or, no, they're trying to hide or sanitize, see people sanitize things. I hate that. I don't want that to be the conversation, but I don't know. I mean, what do you think so far? Just kind of that idea.
well, you mentioned two words here. One is sensationalized, and the other one is inaccuracies. That combination leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
Mm,
You know, I'll use what's my man the Nielsen book,
mhm,
Dance Music's Excrement. He talked about the point when there was kind of static in like 1991 between Tony M and Rosie Gaines, you know,
mm,
and he left that visual of that static up to the reader. So if you take a situation that could be inflammatory or just have conflict, I don't know what this filmmaker did. Now, did he like really play that up? You know, I've heard that there are issues of Prince and physicality with women. And the unfortunate thing about that is, and I'm going to get some static on this, that's not off limits because Prince showed that himself in Purple Rain.
right, right.
That, and when I saw that, 100 years ago, I'm like, that was a mistake. You're the hero here. You don't do this. That made no sense. Now he's flawed. Yeah, we get that. But flawed like that? Come on, man. And so now that you've put that in the atmosphere, people are going to follow up on it. Now, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it's true. I wasn't there. And if a young lady, I'm not going to mention names, so I want to put this on anybody, but if a young lady in his past who knew him said, yeah, that happened with me, that's her story to tell.
Oh,
And that's
oh, we're talking about Jill Jones. We're gonna salute Jill Jones. We're gonna read her statement. So yeah, we keep it a buck here. And Jill
and
Jones,
again,
friend of the show.
yeah, yeah.
That's our sister. So yeah,
And it's her story to tell, and that's fine. And if the filmmaker said, okay, I'm going to take Jill's story and then build it up into some whole dramatic other thing, it's like, wait a minute, man. Let's not sensationalize it. That's the thing that will kind of bug me. Now, if that happened and Jill sat there and said, yeah, that's what happened, cool, let's go with it. Because that's what happened. That's her story. But if Homeskillet, the director, went ahead and said, well, let's fatten that up a bit. And it's like you and I talked, for years about a lot of times when a new director will come onto a superhero project and say, I don't like the way Superman looks here. I'm changing it. Well, motherfucker, who are you going to change this? No,
mm,
that's what he looks like. And if they took Jill's story and fattened it up and sensationalized it and then made it accurate as well, just to make it fit his narrative, then that's a problem for me.
that's if. That's a
Again,
big.
I'm saying everything is if.
That's a big
Everything
if.
is if.
Right. And that's the other thing too. I guess the term sensationalized to someone that may seem sensationalized to somebody else that may seem underwhelming or something. Right. That may be like, why are they not digging more into that? That's more serious than how
Than the
many
music.
beats per
Yeah.
minute nigga did or something. And so I would say both sides I can understand. I think just even if you go by the reaction to the article, the New York Times, when we who have never seen this movie just saw those lines of text, in some people's mind, just the lines of text of that allegation is sensationalized, just to even put it there. So again, but to me, those are just words on the screen of somebody saying what happened to them. But do we want to hear that in the context of this? Some people don't, and some people, I guess, do. Let me just read one of Jill's comments here after this announcement of this thing not coming out. And this is the Jill Jones official. I think this was on Facebook. So
Oh,
Prince
Instagram?
in Instagram, she's on different social medias. Prince was a man who lived under the weight of expectation, both his own and those of the world that adored him. He built a persona so larger than life that it became a prison, a gilded cage, one he could never fully step out of. Prince's alleged struggle with actually, let me just stop for a second. To give the briefest of context, when we were talking about Jill Jones, and he mentioned earlier the movie Purple Rain. Jill Jones is in Purple Rain. She is the young lady with the blonde hair that works at the First Avenue, and it kind of almost alludes in the movie that there may be some sort of connection between her and the kid in the story. But Jill Jones is also in Prince's band at certain times. She's had her own album. She's starred in another Prince movie, Graffiti Bridge. She's been with Prince many of years. I think from Dirty Mind Controversy, all through
I
that,
think controversy, yeah, up through there.
through that and been and singing on the songs and all of the people's songs in that camp. So she been there from the old days. She's been in the game with Prince. And so she'll know him a little bit better than we would. Let's just okay. She was there. She says Prince's alleged struggle with drug addiction was deeply intertwined with his relentless pursuit of perfection. an impossible standard he imposed on himself to satisfy a fan base that craved his mystique, his eccentric behavior, and his ever evolving artistry. At his core, he was a consummate people pleaser, trapped in the expectation to remain an enigma, always surprising, always beyond reach. The tragedy lies in the fact that so many refused to acknowledge the truth of who he really was. He understood this better than anyone. He knew that revealing his true self, stripped of the carefully crafted persona, would lead to rejection. And in a way, he was right. The recent choices made by Netflix and his estate only reinforce this truth. The world is unwilling to accept Prince as a man, only as a myth. Without the elaborate stagecraft, without the veil of mystery, his raw humanity is deemed insufficient. His struggles, his journey, his sacrifices, all the elements that shaped him will remain obscured. Instead, the world will most likely receive a sanitized, polished version of Prince, a carefully curated illusion that erases the depth of his reality. Man.
You hit the magic word. You hit the magic word. Um, with Jill, she was there in the earliest, early days. I think, like you said, Dirty Mind controversy, right around then. And when you look at things from a perspective, Prince from Dirty Mind is not the same cat who was the teacher to the ladies in Third Eye Girl. You know, he took that journey, and if a person can accurately tell the journey, then tell it. Then tell it. Don't make it about the bumps in the road. Make it about the journey. Our man started here back in '78 when he sat down with Columbia Records and said no. And Columbia Records said, "Well, we want Maurice White to produce you." And he's all, "Yeah, really? No." Now, see, that's something interesting. 17, 18-year-old kid saying, "Yeah, no," to that. I'm producing myself, and they let him. That's something heavy there. What kind
Yeah.
of stones does that take to say that? Where
Uh,
most people just would roll over and just
mm,
whatever. He said no. And then he gets, then he's all, and by the way, I need another label or another deal to set up my own band, my offshoot project. And that blows up.
mhm.
hmm And then, of course, the fame hits and fame affects us all differently. And I believe it was Alan who told us that one time, that one brief time, he saw Prince crack. They're in the car headed to the Purple Rain premiere, and Prince is in there with Alan. He's all, "Oh man, this is really happening!" And he's like, "Wait, let
Mm.
me get it back. Let me get it back. All right, cool, let's go." You know, tell us that
See
story.
that though, what you just described, that to me what's interesting is, well, why did he say, why was he feeling like that?
Yeah,
Why would a
yeah.
young person getting signed say he wants to do it all by him? Why does he think like that? That's what I'm to me, that's what I would be
I
curious
would
to
like to know
understand.
too.
Because it's one thing to, you can say, yeah, he did these things, but without understanding the context of how he got to that point, I think, and this, I just speak for myself as a person who followed Prince's early years like that and was like, "God, I love that. I want to do it like that too." I don't know, but I don't know the journey of the struggle to get to make that type of decision. Like, what was his child? What were the things that made his mindset be to do these types of things? There's one thing to just say about all of the great things that a person done, but you can't really learn the game if you don't know what it took for a person to be that. It was like, well, Michael Jordan is crazy on the hoops. Yeah, but what did it take for him to get, like, why does he have that type of spirit about him? He wasn't born that way. He's not just some magical thing. And he just all about business or all about practicing. What made him be like that? You know what I'm saying? I think that's the thing that it may not be a happy story. You know, a lot of times our struggle, our greatness comes out of struggle, right? Uh, and sometimes we don't want to deal with this, talk about the struggle. We just want to tell the kids, you can be great. You can be anything you want to be. Look at me. I did. Yeah, but you went through homelessness or you went through, you know, I need to understand that because I'm coming out, I have everything I need. So I don't understand. I'll never get the mindset you have because I was never raised in the conditions that you were. And I think that's the thing with Prince. You ain't gonna never be, we're never gonna get another Prince necessarily, because I think at the core of it, you know, Prince is a young, from a young man, is a young black boy who may feel like his parents don't want him, right? That was going to breed a whole different type of attitude. And like, I ain't never gonna let nobody get the jump on me no more. I ain't gonna lose. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make. If my own parents, I'm not living with my parents. Right? What does that do to the psyche of a child? To me, you know, you're gonna be on some different shit. And to me, that's when I look at Prince. I'm like, yeah, you ain't gonna be like Prince. You didn't go through that type of struggle. Ain't no way you can be like Prince. You can practice all day if you want to, but you're not gonna have the attitude that he had because you weren't raised under the conditions that made him be who he is. You know, it ain't just because he's practicing how to play the guitar all day. It's why he practiced to play. Who was he trying to impress when he was trying to play? You know, there's some daddy things going there. There's some mother things. So that's what I'm like. To me, you can make it just all about the accomplishments and the great stuff, but you be telling a false story if you didn't say why that person is like that. Because that's why you'll never be like, and maybe you don't ever want another person to be like that. Like I would, if the what he had to go through to become this, I don't think it's worth it. At
Well,
the
we
end of the
got some of
day,
that too, though,
yeah,
in
to
in the
me,
music.
when I listen to Questlove, when I gather what he's saying, I think he may have realized I don't want to live like that. I thought I wanted to be that, but now I understand sort of a little bit of what was going on. Yeah, maybe this ain't really what it's supposed to be. It ain't what it's cracked up to be. And if it, because my thing is, if it was all it was cracked up to be, Prince would be alive right now because he was only 57. He's a young man. So it can't be that good. But again, I think when I gather from what Jill is saying is we would probably rather it be a myth and mysterious because that's a little easier to swallow than if we realize, man, there was some shit going on. We never saw it. We just feel good because I feel good because the music felt good. The product, the persona of Prince was amazing, right? He carefully curated how we saw Prince. We all argue that to each other. We say that to each other. Yeah, he was a control, he was a private person. Well, why was he a private person? Why was his image so meticulously structured for us?
Because
Right?
if they don't know me, they can't hurt me.
That's one angle. And but why think like that? Is that a guy who's went through some trauma and he's doing
Oh
putting
yeah,
every wall up in his foot to keep? So I mean, the thing is to say is if that is true, then you have to understand that uh it takes a lot to be what he was. And at a certain point, do we just continue to only only championing the 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 him that he presented to us, but we don't want to deal with there may have been some struggle and pain behind the choices of doing that, but because we just feel good of the way he presented us, damn all that. Like I mean, like if you really knew somebody, like if you really knew, I don't say it like this. If we're really friends, right, and you really cared about me, and you love the work I did at work, I was one of the best employees. Shit, you work for me, but you didn't realize I was doing all this because I was doing it to mask the pain I had about something, or I didn't really feel like I was, and I'm not speaking for, I'm talking about just general situations, but it was really rooted in I was masking certain things. And the success of my company allowed me not to ever have to really address something. I could just leave that and move on. But you're in a comfortable position. You're getting something great out of this. And if you sort of to hear, like, man, I think something was really going on with Mike, man. He might be on, he's going through some shit. Yeah, but he do the podcast dope. I love it. Yeah, but he's struggling. Like, he's actually struggling to do the podcast at times. It comes off, it to us, it seems great, but he's actually going through some shit. And everybody who worked at the podcast, they low key know it. But why would they say something that would affect their job too? That would affect the success and the things that they could, it's better if Mike don't want to deal with it. We ain't got to deal with it, even though we know you can catch him sometime and he'd be like, something going on, something's going on, but he turns it around and he comes back and perform. Would you be concerned about me to, or would you be like, man, fuck that. Let's keep it rocking. That's to me the question. You know what I'm saying? Like, do we care more enough about letting somebody maintain this fantasy to a degree because of all the shit that we got tied into it? We don't want to deal with the real because it would be too disruptive, and we don't want to break away this fantasy enjoyment that we have out of it. I'd rather just deal with the fun part. And I think that's what's going on with Prince. I think that's, I'm just wrapping my mouth. I wonder if that's always been the case. And if a lot of the people that were around him work for him, in some low key, and I'm gonna say this respectfully, in some low key ways, they was lying. But they aligned because they wanted to protect him. And they wanted to also protect their own sort of thing. Like, I'm a part of this now too. If something was that be exposed, then it might affect my success out of this too. Like, yo, I'm gonna be a company, I'm gonna hold the line. You know what I'm saying? And I wonder if a little bit of that has always been going on and it's starting to, Prince is not around anymore to really maintain his relationships or whatever it was to keep that people, no, let's keep my name out your mouth. Now that he's not here and it really is just a business at this point, right? It's just an estate, it's a business to protect that. And we're in a world that no one ever saw coming 20, 30 years ago where anybody can have a platform to say what they want. There's a lot more opportunities to see and hear different things. So you can't keep it all quiet, right? It's just a different time. And I think now when somebody like a Jill or, Wendy and Lisa, Susanna, uh, some of these other people who are in this documentary are starting to tell other things that we had never heard before. Yeah, it's a little like, and then again, I don't think any of these allegations or news stories, personally, they don't make me want to not listen to Prince. They actually pull me more in, but I do understand for some fans that don't want to hear that. And I could see how that it could be taken in the wrong way. And I can also understand the estate's point of view, like, not to say that that stuff ain't true, but why would we put that conversation out? This is our job. Like, you know what I'm saying? This could mess up our job. But my point is to say, my other point is to say, as if you really loved somebody better than you love the opportunities that I could create for you, would you kind of question that, or would you say something, or would you at least maybe don't go to the press, but at least you go and say, "Hey, man, that ain't right," or "What's going on?" You know. And I use myself as an example because again, what would you do, Big Six, if you did learn like, yeah, there's something going, or if I knew something was going on with you like that, and I just choose to like, eh, nah, I ain't gonna deal with that. We having too much. Everything's great over here. He's great, and then you're not here no more, right? Then what happens? Well, Mike, He checked. Mike's not here no more. He ain't here because he just had some normal health things. No, he went out on some bullshit. And then you knew all the time, low key, man, something was kind of going on. So it puts everybody in this kind of weird kind of spot. Um, I don't know, man. It's just like I said.
All right. Uh, I have a lot to say on this one here.
Oh, you know what? Before I let you say that, I
Yeah.
want to let's read the last thing from Jill Jones here. I saw this comment. It was actually posted in our Discord, or somebody captured it. I'm assuming this is a comment Jill must have made to someone online or something. But whether it was or was a yeah, it was she's addressing somebody at the beginning of this. But I felt what she was saying. I do want to say this part. Um, this is Joe Jones again. It says, I will say this again. So let me get this straight. Documentaries about someone's private life should stay private. Interesting take. But let's break that down. You all want to know the most trivial, intimate, and dissectable details of Prince's life, who every song was about, what every lyric meant, where he was when he wrote it, what inspired it. You want to know what his favorite foods were, what he smelled like, how he decorated his house, who he loved, who he fought with, what he whispered in the moment of vulnerability. You even debate what shade of purple he preferred. And you don't think that is prying into his private life. Let's be real. If privacy were truly sacred to you, you wouldn't be in your forms analyzing his every move. You wouldn't argue over bootlegs or hoard unreleased music he never intended the world to hear. You wouldn't be asking people who knew him what he was really like behind closed doors. The only reason you're drawing the line now is because the truth being told makes you uncomfortable. If you think a documentary should stay private, then maybe just maybe you should stop asking invasive questions about his songs, his relationships, and his personal choices. Maybe you should stop demanding access to his vault, his journals, his unfinished work. Maybe you should just sit in your room alone, play the music, and stop pretending privacy is your concern. Because let's be honest, it never was.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
So there you go. Now you got it.
I gotta follow that.
My bad.
All right. A few things popped into mind as you were speaking. The first is I recall an interview in Rolling Stone back in the 80s. I believe it was the one with the Paisley Park, or excuse me, Raspberry Beret clip on the cover, where it said Prince speaks, because he had stopped talking to the press for a while.
Mhm.
And in that, he said during the time of Dirty Mind, he was going through a lot of depression. He admitted that. He didn't, and he said, I'm going to follow up on that in my next movie. That never happened. Don't know why, not my business. But there's that piece here. And then what you said about, using yourself as the example, I can do the same thing. People have come to me, oh man, Mark, you've done all this, you did all that. Really? You ought to write a book. No, I don't think so. Oh, well, you should. It's like you don't know what I had to go through to get here. Was it easy? Absolutely not. No, no. And to be, I'm not the golden goose, but to use two men that we both admire, Mr. Jackson and Mr. Nelson, at some point you could hear from other people. They got people around them that would keep out a Morris Day, you know, that would keep out people closer to them. Now, I'm not saying they did it themselves, but the people around them were like, look, this is my bag now. So I can't have you coming in, checking on his well-being and fucking up my program. That's because you've heard it in both of these stories. You know, with Michael Jackson, was it the bodyguards? Because they saw it. They saw it. And in Morris Day's book, he said, I went to Paisley Park one day, and they're like, "You can't come in." Excuse me? I'm Morris. You better, hey, motherfucker. And that's what you hear. And so sometimes, and we're all susceptible to this. The yes men get in your ear and think, you will begin to believe you're the greatest thing since fire because they're not telling you anything else. You know, there are members of the band, and I'm not going to pick on anybody today, but that I feel were doing the same thing that didn't have, you know, the interest of supposedly their friend and their boss, like to pull them aside. Hey, man, I'm seeing some things. Are you all right? Just that conversation, you know, and then you start to believe the things around you that are not real, but you believe them as real. You know what? I really am that guy. I really am this. Then, yeah, bow down to me. No, no. One of my best friends, I was going through some things several years ago, and I figured it out. And he pulled me aside. He said, "Look, man, I had an eye on you the whole time. And I was, I wanted you to see if you could figure it out. But if you weren't going to figure it out, you and I are going to have that discussion." I'm like, "Well, all right." Now, the frustrating thing with Prince is, as far as the pharmaceuticals and the dependencies, I think he had figured that out. He had made that call. The cat was from the rehab center was on his way to Paisley when he passed. And my question is, why was he alone? If this was really cooking, someone should have been at his side 24/7 to make certain he got to the facility. You know, when they
Right. If
they
he was alone, right? We really
if
don't know.
we don't know, just going by what we're hearing, if they landed that plane in Chicago because he was having a medical situation, should not have been left alone. Period. Other people were worried about feathering their own nest and protecting the golden goose because they needed to get what they got from it. And what's my man's name? One of the cousins is like, "No, I'm not having that." And he is still doing his thing, trying to track down, you know, to get the police to make an arrest on this thing.
Come on,
I
man,
admire,
Chaz.
yes, I admire the hell out of him for that. He's like, "No, I'm not waiting on this. No, we need to get this done." And that's how it should be. So, with Mr. Nelson, we don't know what he was going through. And like you said, in order to get to just to the point where he sits down with Warner Brothers and Columbia Records, just to get to that point, we all know he wanted validation and praise from his dad, which he never got. Because I remember Prince will talk. You saw the One Night Alone tour just like I did, and he said in the beginning of the show, I would sneak in and play the piano because I was told not to. Nobody taught me, so I taught myself. I get that, So some people want to see all that, want to know all that, and it's like, this, as the subject of it, I can see why he didn't want to talk about it. I overcame all of this, so I can do all of that, and I want you to see what I want to project, not what I had to overcome, because I don't want to get into that. I don't want to go back there.
Sure.
I want to do this. And now that he's no longer with us, a lot of people, I want to know it all. And like you said, we're in a social media time. Any knucklehead can get on YouTube and say whatever they want to say. And there's no really real repercussions. It's once it's out there, you cannot ring that bell. So that's a problem. That's a problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and but yes, that is a problem. And in this situation, it is something that was created under the agreement of two parties, Netflix and the estate, right? Um, and you know, things change, management changes, outlooks change. So you have to respect that as well. End of the day, they're going to do what they have to do because this is a business. That's what I'm not. So I would have probably done the same. you know. So I understand that. I just think that I hope there is thoughts, and I'm sure there are, of what is to come. Because now the story, I think this is a shift. This would be one of, a totem pole. Okay, the Prince thing was all about this. Now, uh, the mainstream press has found something that they want to. I think they will want to jump into. Uh, Prince has been gone for a while now, and we've seen these releases of the music, right? And you've seen how it has been covered in the press and different things. You know, uh, these albums come out, the super deluxes in the fan world, the greatest thing ever. Like, yeah. I don't know the rest of the world. They're not having extensive thought pieces on these releases and things of that nature, right? But when a publication like the New York Times does a cover story, an extensive cover story, right? And it's on Prince, this is what they're talking about. And then and that cover story sparks a whole thing. And to keep it clear, I do believe that I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix, uh, Elderman, you know, a little bit behind the push of the story and making sure they have access to people to talk about the story, and give them access to people to talk, to be interviewed in the story. Obviously, probably push a sort of agenda, like we would want this to come out, and we're clicked in with different organizations to make that happen. That's business as well too. But nonetheless, now it has been put out there, and now the next move has been, it ain't coming out. And the estate standing 10 toes down, 9-hour hit piece. They letting you know from their point of view, it ain't happening. We're standing, salute. So both sides, I get it. This is a chessboard. Both sides is moving pieces, right? But the game ain't over. In my mind, I don't think the game is actually over yet. I think it just
No.
goes to a different level. But now it's a game. Now I think that documentary. I hope that new documentary was made. I'm sure it's gonna be dope. Like I want to see all this footage, man. That's really what I want to see. So that's great. But now blood is in the water, and if you think the New York Times and all these other journalists is not gonna be like, they're gonna keep their eyes scrutinized on what was cut and what wasn't in this one and whatnot, you be fooling yourself. Like that's gonna be the next play. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other organizations, and we're seeing this now and I'm not comparing the circumstances of the particular details, but in terms of how the media works, you see all these documentaries that's dropping every other month on Diddy, right? All these different news organizations got a documentary. Hulu got one, such and such got one, 50 Cent got one. They all coming with their thing. I would not be surprised if some of them start coming with some Prince type documentaries, because now hey, there's some money to be made here. This is a big story now. There's anticipated buzz that's going to happen probably in the next couple of years for when this new documentary happens, and that's going to be a big news story. And why don't we get a piece of that? Put such and such on that story. You got a couple of years. Dig in. Here's your budget. Go get busy. Now you got all these other people that got money to spend, that want to make money. And so not just the estate and not just Netflix. Now I think it's going to open the gate. You're going to have some of these YouTubers or other just independent filmmakers. Shoot, I want to get into that story. What was going on, for whatever agendas they may have. And if you was somebody who got something to say and want to get your truth out there, I just think now it's gonna be a now it's gonna make it a big thing in a way that it shouldn't have to be.
Well,
I
like
just
you said, though, with the proliferation, and we'll use Puffy Dad for the moment, of things about him, but just as a encompassing thing, there have been a lot of music-based biographies out the last several years,
Mhm.
and then you have things like Tales from the Tour Bus. That's going on, and the restarting of Behind the Music. Unsung. I mean, there's so many things out there, which a show, like you said, there's a market for it. So people want to see this. They want to know. They want to hear about their musician people that they enjoyed and looked up to.
Yeah.
So there is a demand for that. Now, also, then you look at another step of you have your Prime, you have your Netflix, you have your Hulu, Apple TV, and Apple makes some great ones too. There is a place for these now.
Mhm.
So there's going to be, now the quality will vary, but like you said, the doors are open now. People may say, they're not going to do it, then we'll do it ourselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. So I guess we'll wait and see. Hopefully, it doesn't go, too wild.
Nuts.
But I just think that I wonder if it does sort of open the door now for, you know, oh, the real Prince and whatever. Yeah. I hate that.
Uh,
But I could easily see it in today's world. You know, the fear of him being canceled. That ain't. It's not the fear of him being canceled. It is the fear of people spinning his story that don't really care about him. You know, I don't personally. I don't think this stuff will cancel him at all. It would make
no,
him more
no.
endearing to a lot of people. I would imagine, but the fact that it's going to be coming from, it could come from other stuff. I think that's sort of like you got to be careful of because with one thing, you can't keep everything a secret forever. It just doesn't.
And
It
not if you're going
becomes
to be
too much work.
and not if you're a public figure either.
Right,
If
and
you're a
that's the
public
other thing.
figure, it's coming out.
Yeah, he's extremely public person. He was a
Exactly.
very private public person, but public nonetheless.
And the more you hide things or don't want to talk about it, the more the public wants to see it.
Yeah,
Now I
that's
don't
true.
know what caused him to stop talking to the press back in the early '80s, but he did it. He's like, I ain't talking to none of you. Fuck you. And that was that.
He- yeah, and that works back then.
Yeah, can't do it now,
It
but it
worked
did
back.
work back then. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you can do it now, but they'll forget about you.
you will not. You will not get the same coverage now, not
No.
at all. And that's why I think to this day I will die on this hill. That's why I think he didn't get the Sign of the Times Album of the Year because he wasn't playing the game. He would have to work in the room shaking the hands, kissing the
Mm.
babies. He's like, I'm going to stand on my music. And, the other people were out there doing that, and somebody else went, which was bullshit.
All right. Well, I'm very curious to see what you guys at home or out in the world think about this. Any other comments? Um, I guess we can now wait. We'll be waiting for a couple of years to see this new documentary. I'm excited. And then also we don't speak, but they put that video out like the vault is freed now, and so I hope that means they can release stuff more consistently, and they've got a plan moving forward. I bring it on. So now there's no excuses. Bring it on. You know what I'm saying? So if that's the case, then we don't need to hear about where it at. That's the next thing out their mouth is drop some dates or when we can hand over my money so that we can see some stuff or hear some stuff. At the end of the day, that's what I really want. So hopefully we can get that popping. So I'm appreciative of that part of it. And hopefully we can move forward with this thing. But I do think that we're moving forward, but sort of Pandora's box has been sort of cracked open and it is what it is. So I don't know if there's winners per se, but we ain't going nowhere. We didn't go nowhere for all the other controversies he didn't had over the years. So why would I go anywhere now? Like, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But any last words from you?
Yeah, I think people need to get off of Londell McMillan for a little bit because the guy is in an unenviable position
Okay.
of trying to steward this and safeguard this cat's legacy. And I know they were friends at one point. I know he was his attorney at one point. I'm hearing that that wasn't the case at the end. I don't know. But for whatever reasons, he's in that position. And he's got a lot of people look at him like saying, dude, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I get that. He's doing the best he can. Let's, let's,
Mm.
let's let him do that. Now as far as Mr. Questlove, and I've said this before, I've not heard one Root song in my life. Not one.
Really?
But really,
You
but
probably haven't just didn't know it or something.
you might be right, but I enjoy him as a writer and as an interviewer. And the fact that this was a 9 hour, I'm not going to call it a hit piece because I didn't see it, but a 9 hour piece of film that he didn't really break down. And this is a guy who's had in-depth chats with, Alan Leeds, like we have, and things like that. And it's like, he's not talking about it really. I'm curious as to see what the big deal is. And the thing is, you and I both know a lot of times things get built up to such a degree, and then you get it. You're like, this was it? This was the big deal?
Well,
Shit.
yeah, well, I think the thing is, a guy in his position, it would be, I don't know, it's a career suicide, but the you can't be commenting on unreleased films before they come out, and you in the film business, you wouldn't be working in the film business no more. That's a no no. Like nobody does that. Not even in just regular films.
Yeah.
When some if you came out and said something disparaging about a major motion picture before it came out and you was in the industry, you'd be out of the game. Like, there's no way he could say something about that. Like, not in a disparaging type of thing. That's why I was saying, like, he knows he's being interviewed for his comments during that piece.
Yeah.
He's
True.
telling, but he's not going to sit there and go in, and not gonna be, he'd be crazy to talk about it before it came out like that with a no release date, because then he'd be spoiling what's happening. He could risk. I don't. Again, I'm assuming he signs an NDA walking in
I
that
was going to
room
say,
before
they
he
got to
even
sign
watches
an
it in the
NDA.
first place. So, I mean, they would be dumb to let people just watch it nilly nilly like that. But
I'll say one more thing, too, before you jump off. Filmmakers are really hard headed because they're creative cats. They're really stubborn. So unless you're writing that check, and even then, you go to the filmmaker, you know what? Take that out. I ain't
that's
taking out
all
shit.
artists. That's all
You
artists.
know, again, so
That- that-
so that's a problem right there.
That's all artists. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm looking forward to the new doc. Bring it on. Yeah. So, other than that, we about to get up out of here. Working like a job. See you next time. Peace.